This is kind of strange, isn't it? Sitting this far apart. So how many times have you guys seen this movie? Like just watch the numbers.
Like 30? 4?
Something like that.
That's great. That's great.
Have you seen it?
Like I said, I don't like to watch myself. So when I work, I mean, I have zero stress. I'm in the most blissful place in the world when I work. I mean, when I do something like this, the Dalai Lama needs to call me for freaking advice when I'm working. But like the first time I saw it was this one was on the red carpet. Man, I was sweating bullets. I mean, my suit was just soaked. I was just so. It just stresses me out to watch it. I don't like it. And then I did. Right from there, I went to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and it was my first haunt ever. And I got to sit and watch it with fans. That was cool. That was really, really cool. And I think I'd see it one more time. But yeah, I mean, I've done so much stuff. So much television and film work I've never even seen. I've never even seen it. But this is special. I mean, and I got to tell you this film. And I've worked with some amazing directors, Francis Ford Coppola and Ron Howard. And, David Gordon Green, for my money, is hands down the best director I've ever worked with. The man checks his ego at the door. He solicits and elicits creativity from everywhere. It doesn't matter what job you have. If you've got an idea, he's going to listen to it. And then if it sucks, he'll never listen to it again. I mean, you know what I mean? But he just totally checks his ego at the door. And it's amazing how passionate he and Danny McBride are about this franchise. And so when I found out, because I knew I was doing 3 pictures, when I found out David was going to direct Kills, which we just finished, fall 19, I was like, dude, you got balls, man. I mean, you do, because I think you did such a beautiful job on 2018. And usually a director will leave it to somebody else to fuck it up, you know. But believe me, man, Kills is 18 on steroids. I mean, it took me weeks to recover. So, yeah. Any questions?
So will the last one be coming out this year as well? Because I heard Kills, and then the final one will be coming out at around the same time.
No, we haven't even shot it.
Okay, good.
We were supposed to shoot it this past fall, but obviously the COVID thing shut us down.
Right.
So we're shooting that maybe August, September, November, or maybe January, February, March, that kind of thing. Right now it's kind of tenuous. We're kind of planning on the fall, but we can't control all this craziness.
Right.
So yeah, and so October 16 this year for Kills, and then next October Ends will be released, so in 2022.
So you'll be in that one too?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Is it actually going to be over after Ends?
Right.
It's never over.
Exactly.
One would like to think. Yeah. I mean, realistically, I can't imagine. After this trilogy, I mean, what it's been? It was 10 years, right, since the last one. So, who knows? I mean, who knows what's going to happen? And that David Gordon Green is directing, Danny McBride and David are writing, all 3 of these, and they put so much incredible work into it. Yeah, it's. And what I love about those guys is they take risks. They really had to go with their passion. And the cool thing about working on the first one, on 2018, was everybody has a Halloween story. Like everybody has the 1978. Everybody saw that movie. Like David Gordon Green was not allowed to watch it because he was too little and his parents knew he'd be too scared. But finally, he got to stay at a friend's house overnight, and they watched the movie. He ended up peeing his pants, and his dad had to come pick him up. I mean, everybody working on that film, and Christopher Nelson, the profoundly gifted Academy Award-winning special effects makeup guy who designed the mask. One day, because I started my day every day in his makeup trailer, hour and a half of makeup. And early on, he looks at me and he goes, dude, this movie is the reason why I do what I do. This is why I do what I do. And I'm like, me too, man. I can honestly say I've never had a better experience. I've never worked with people more passionate, because everybody had a Halloween story. You know, not everybody has a Terminator story, or a Far Away story, or a General Hospital story. But everybody has a Halloween story, and that's, you know, I mean, so to be around that level of creativity, and I don't know how many of you have ever been on a movie set, but a good movie set, it doesn't matter if it's like 6 in the morning or 6 in the evening, everybody starts with good morning, you know, and everybody's always saying good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. So instead of, like, if they're ready for an actor or somebody to come on the set, they don't say, hey, go get Jimmy from the trailer. They, you know, Dave will say to an assistant, please invite Jimmy to the set. And then I get a knock on the door and they say, Dave's inviting you to the set. And then I get to the set and they're like, welcome to the set. I mean, everybody goes out of the way to be courteous, because we're spending 12, 14, 16 hours a day working. It's easy to get a dick. You know what I mean? It's easy to get exhausted and just have a short temper. But when you get around these kinds of people with this level of creativity and this kind of passion for a project like this, everybody was out of their way to be kind and generous and helpful, as long as you don't break any rules. You know? I'm not allowed to have cable cameras. They're not allowed to act. Any other question?
So is Michael your favorite character you've ever played?
Hands down. Hands down.
I figured.
Nothing compares to it. And especially because there was an old character actor named Ted Knight. He was one of my mom's favorite actors. He was under retirement. Funny as balls, right? When I first moved to Hollywood, I was waiting on tables for the first 3 years. Waiting on tables, doing security work, you know, that kind of stuff. And I waited on Ted Knight. He's like in his mid-60s. He shows up with this hot, like 22-year-old, you know, date, and he's like, "Hey, you're an actor." I was like, "How do you know?" He goes, "Well, you know, I can just tell by the way you act, I guess." So he said, "Well, let me give you a little tip on acting." He's like, "You know, instead of worrying about all these technical things that you're going to learn, I know you're going to learn as you study and you go to class and you study with all these great teachers." He said, "Just emulate. You see somebody walking down the street, you're working with a bartender, you know, like you're walking in a hospital and when you see a nurse working on somebody, emulate them. And when you emulate them, don't look at the way they point their feet or how they move their hand. Reach inside their soul and feel who they are and what they are. And once you grasp who they are, you're automatically going to move like that." So I did that, and you know, I started working with that, and it's a very spiritual experience. So when I got the call, so Ron Hutchinson, who coordinated this, stunt coordinated, he had stunt coordinated the 2 Rob Zombie films. He read the script and he called Malak Akkad and David Gordon Green and said, "Look, this script is different than, you know, the other scripts. This is different. You need a guy who's a really good actor, a trained actor, and who's a really good stuntman. And there's not many of those guys around. But it's true, there's not. I mean, there's just not. Most guys focus either on stunts or they focus on acting. You know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that." So David said, "Do you know anybody?" He goes, "Yeah, I know one guy." And David said, "Well," he goes, "Well, he has to be 6'3", 200 pounds, and in his 60s. And so Ron calls me, and he goes, "Hey, Jimmy, we're doing Halloween." I said, "Awesome, man, awesome, cool, good for you, buddy, that's gonna be fun." And he said, "Yeah," and I knew, I'd already moved back to South Carolina, where I'm from. I already moved back from LA. I was focused on getting my films made, and my decision, like 10 years ago, was the only time I'm gonna work is when a friend calls me. Other than that, I'm focused on writing, producing, you know, getting my films made. And when a buddy calls me and says, "Hey, I want you in my film, I want you in my commercial, I want you in my show," I'll do it, yeah. So he goes, "How tall are you these days?" I was like, 6'3", and, well, you know, the normal stuntman answer is, "How tall do you want me?" Like, "How tall are you?" "Well, how much you weigh these days?" "I weigh 200. He goes, "How old are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, so 62. And
Wow.
So I've been, yeah, 62, yeah. And he goes, "Yeah, well," and he told me the story. And he said, "You know, would you mind going down to meet, you know, meet David down in Charleston?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, man, that'd be fun." So I drive down there. Columbia is about an hour and a half away from Charleston. I drive down to Charleston, my little pickup truck, pull in, get on tape, you know, and the stunt nobody's there, just the casting director, and he's got a camera on me. And So he has me move, and we talk about things. And oddly enough, the first film I ever did, Freeway Maniac, I played a psychopathic killer who chases a woman, and breaks out of a, insane asylum. So I walk out, guys, this is great, good job, awesome. Walk out, I get my truck, I'm not even out in the parking lot, and I get a call on my cell phone, and it's Blumhouse, and they're like, hey, are you available to shoot? So I'm like, yeah. So then I didn't live for 33, which is only 2 miles away. They called me back and they said, hey, David wants to meet you, come back. So I go back and I meet Ryan Turek and David and Malik and all those guys. And it's just one of those things, like, we just knew it was meant to be. Like, and everybody who worked on that film, like Christopher Nelson, knew it was meant to be. And then when they flew me out to Los Angeles for Chris and I to do the work to make the mask, Chris and I had that conversation. It's just, there was a feeling of destiny that everybody had on that every principal had on that film. Like, we were meant to be together in that moment, in space and time, to do this project that we all have a very special affinity for. So, yeah. Any other question?
Yeah, so I gotta know then, since you talked about studying people and everything, who is Michael Myers?
Well, okay, so this is kind of interesting because, I studied with the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. I studied with Stella Adler, who was one of the Rhinos coach. For a lot of characters, I'll know everything about that character. I'll know every single, all the nuances, I'll know the reasons why I'm saying things, who I'm speaking to, who's speaking to me, what buttons it's pushing. So, so there are all these, and there's an intellectual exercise to acting. And then, of course, there's the reaching the feeling, and, this psychological, emotional, psychic parts. For this one, I chose when I was called to go down, I watched 1978 one time. And all I did was just sit and watch, and just reaching into what Nick Castle did. Just reaching into Nick's, because Nick is such a brilliant man. I mean, and Nick will say, yeah, all I do is walk. Well, I mean, he, Deborah Hill and John Carpenter created something in Jake. But Nick Castle filled it out. You know what I mean? Nick Castle just intuitively created something that lives in all our memories. So I'm sitting there watching it, and there's a scene where he's walking screen left to screen right in the backyard. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I got it. Like, whatever it was, that feeling is, I still have not intellectualized it, and I'm not going to. Because I need to be in the same place when I show up on the first day for Ends in Chris's makeup trailer that I was on the first day for 2018, and the first day I was for Halloween Kills. And maybe someday, after it's been released, I'll put my little thinking cap on, or drink too much and start thinking about that. But really, I don't want to, because it's too pure. It's a deep place. I have a lot of experience. I've worked with shaman in South America in the jungles. I've done Africa and done plant medicine. I've done plant medicine with North American Native. I used to hang out with the former chief of staff of Cedars-Sinai Psychiatric Ward, and I'm gonna just be honest with y'all, and do plant medicine in his backyard with really brilliant minds, And so the places I learned to go to were really important for doing this, because I could breathe into a deep place, and even if I went to a really dark place, I could breathe right out of it. And David Green actually said after 2018, it was probably right in the middle of it, he said, yeah, man, he goes, I worked with a guy who goes as deep as you go, and he ended up in a psych ward. He couldn't get back out. He had psychic, he had a break. He ended up spending 2 months in the psych ward. It's a deep place. It's a really, really deep place. It's beyond judgment, though. It's beyond 3D. It's beyond like right and wrong and good and bad. Fuck that stuff, man. That's, this is a different energy. It's a different reality. And I gotta say one thing to you guys, man. And I've probably said to a few of you, I've said it often, in interviews, and horror fans are the nicest people in the planet. I mean, they're the nicest people on the planet. And Michael, Zach Myers, who's the guitarist, songwriter for the band Shinedown, by the way, just beat Tom Petty for all-time #1 hits and all-time top 10 hits, right? Zach and I are very good friends. So we had this conversation, and he's a huge Halloween fan. His name's Michael Myers. we had this conversation, you know, and thinking about it, I think horror fans exorcise their demons by watching horror. So their subconscious is cleared of all this bullshit that everybody else carries that makes them angry, makes them aggressive, it makes them selfish, it makes them discourteous, you know what I mean? I'm telling you, man, you know, going to the conventions and meeting the horror fans that I've met, had the absolute joy of spending time with. I have never met a nicer group of people. I mean, it's just, it has to do, I think, with this, you know, with this sort of psychological trick we play on each other, you know what I mean? We go watch horror and we don't have to do it in real life.
Like I told you earlier, you're fucking awesome, so.
It's all an illusion, buddy. I was a dick before I did this.
So, I've got a question like, did you have any input on any of the kill scenes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What was your favorite one?
There's kind of two. The window kill scene in 18 is because, and it's a fact, I had a housemate, you know, a guy who came to stay with me for, you know, after he got out of prison. He was a made man, I was a mafia guy, and he taught me how to kill. I mean, I've done martial arts for years and years. You know, I can handle a knife, I can handle a sword. I did the Adventures of Conan at Universal Studios for 3-4 years. You know, I've probably 7,000 sword fights because it was a live show. But you know, Dante and I went to a movie I did called The Hit List. Just played a small little role in the end. You know, go ahead and kill somebody. Did a high fall into a pool, and we walk out, and Dante's like, hey, Jimmy, you know, it's not how you kill somebody. And I'm like, well, all right, Dante, show me. Yeah, I'll show you. So we started working out together, and he started like showing me how stealthy he was. So that kill for me is because of what Dante shared with me. That kill for me would be the way I would kill, which is why I enjoyed it so much. You know, just going and whack, taking care of it, and getting out. You know what I mean? But I have to say, the bathroom scene was a blast because it was just so freaking violent. By the way, those people are real. They were from a dental college. And man, those two actors, we had stunt doubles, but those actors did every bit of the fighting.
Oh, wow.
They were. At first, Bob was a little sketchy. He was like, I don't know, that's too violent. But then he decided to go for it. When he went for it, he really went for it. Rianne, oh my God, man, that woman kicks like a mule. And so does Jamie. We did a fight scene at the end of 2018, which didn't make it because it just didn't fit. So maybe I'm not allowed to say this, but there was a scene where I have a knife in my hand like this, and she's got the rifle is out of rounds, and it's out of ammunition. So she turns it around and swings it at me and hits the knife out of my hand. Well, for a stunt person with lots of fight experience to do that with an actor, it's a massive red light because actors are notoriously inaccurate, and they're notorious for hurting people. You know, and I'm like, oh shit, this is. I mean, you know, I was a little jumpy. I really had to pay. She rears back, bah! You know, the knife flies out. 35 freaking takes, never hit my hand. Full swing, knocked the knife out. Grabbing hold of that woman, she wouldn't even put pads on, and I was like slamming her with her body. I mean, her body to the ground. I mean, and she's solid. She's solid. She's
Scream queen, man.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can't say how you did it, that's totally fine. But was there any suggestion that you did to the storyline of the first movie that actually made it into the final cut?
In the first movie, it was more about, as far as my input, it was more like logistically how they already knew how they wanted to do certain action scenes, or and really then it was about safety or about, you know, what, because one of the things I'm really good at is hitting marks. So I can hit 6 or 7 different marks, and then, you know, a director say, I need you 1 inch over on that 6th mark, and I'll go 1 inch over. I mean, that's just one of the things I do well. I suck at lots of things, but that's one of the things I do well. And so, you know, so because of that, I have a sense of where the camera is. I know what lens is being used. I know how far the frame is. And so it's really important when you're working, especially with actors, but other stunt people as well, everybody's in frame. And so I always have an eye on where the frame line is. And so that was more the input from the first one.
Yeah.
There was one in Kills where I had an idea for a particular scene, and this really kind of surprised me, David. So we did several takes on a particular setup. Then we went to my idea. He goes, all right, Jimmy, let's try your idea. So we do it, and so I'm there ready to go, and he goes, all right, Jimmy, it's your idea. Take it, man. Run with it. And I was like, fuck, dude. What are you doing here, man? Yeah. But, you know, Dave, it shows the kind of trust that David has in the people around him. You're gonna love Kills. It's gonna be really great. Yeah, buddy.
How much collaboration have you had with Nick, or, as far as the character and everything? What was
Zero.
it said about your?
Zero. The only collaboration I had with Nick on that character was that time I saw him on the film, reached in, grabbed him, you know, the essence of what I felt he was or what he'd created. I didn't meet him until like 3 weeks in on 18. He came in, you know, he did one scene, but we immediately were fast friends. He is a funny guy. I mean, and y'all know his films. I mean, you know his writing and his directing. You know, he's a brilliant, brilliant man. He is again, zero ego. He's just a happy guy. He was happy to be there. He and I inhabited that scene, you know, when Jamie drives up, when Boy Stroke drives up and Schaefer's up in the window, right? So that's him in the window. But then when she shoots and breaks the mirror, that's me. For a couple of reasons. One, we wanted to, and we talked to David about this, we wanted to inhabit the same scene because we knew that Nick was going to do only one scene. So what we wanted to do was inhabit the same scene, and Nick actually said, I want to pass the baton, I want to pass the torch. And so it made sense because when he was in the window, he was far enough away, he's 5'10", I'm 6'3". So the angle really didn't, and then when they shot the mirror out, the special effects guy was about a foot behind me and about 6 inches over, shooting the projectile past my head to the mirror. Nick's not gonna do that. I mean, it's not what Nick does. I love that. I love being that close to danger. That's why I love the fire scene. So it was really beautiful that we got to inhabit the same scene. It was really excellent. And let me tell you about the fire scene too. Y'all been camping. You sit in front of a fire, right? And the front of your jeans is getting hot, like you're about to burn up. But it's so freaking cold out there that you don't want to leave, right? And all of a sudden you get bit and you gotta go, right? I mean, it's shit. Oh, you know your jeans are gonna catch on fire. So the moment I had 2 Nomex suits soaked in fire retardant gel, my head was in a hood soaked in fire retardant gel. I had to close my eyes, close my mouth, not breathe. The explosion goes off, immediately my entire body was that hot. My entire body was that hot. And what you wait for is a bite. And when you get the bite, you've got about like 3 to 8 seconds, 3 to 7 seconds to get out. But you can't move fast because if you move too fast, you fan the heat, which makes it too hot on you, so you get burned. So, and then just off camera, I've got like 7 firefighters with CO2 and, you know, all their fun gear. So the first time I got bit in the leg. And I was on the stairs, so I had to back down, move out. As soon as I'm off camera, boom, they hit me. And the second time, I got bit in the neck. But I love that because you're so close to getting just really fucked up. You know what I mean? You know, and so it's like you're alive. I was alive. And I was alive when it was over, which was kind of exciting, you know?
You know there's firefighters there.
Yeah, one was really hot too. She was hot.
So, I have a personal question, and as a musician, I can kind of understand, but why do you not want to see your work? I know it's more personal, you know. I understand on the musician side too, but just curious as to why. Is it something psychologically? I mean, is it?
Well, I think musically, I think it's very relatable.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the zone, when you're playing, whether you know it's in front of a camera or on a stage in front of people, whether you're in a studio and you're mic'd up. I mean, it doesn't. You know when you've hit it. You know when you've hit that slipstream.
I agree.
If I watch myself, then my analytical mind will start going, oh wait, that permutation, or oh, you could have done that. Oh, you
You
could have
too,
done this.
right? Yeah.
You know, at a certain point, you gotta let me say, okay, this is the final cut. This is what I'm putting out to the world.
Yeah.
At a certain point. And so, for me, now, I can, for some reason, because David would call me over to the monitor and go, hey, Jimmy, what do you think of this? Or if I'm stunt coordinating, for instance, and I'm in the middle and in the fight, I can step out of that role, step into another mind space and look at the monitor and go, yeah, you're right, what we need to do is this, this, and this, and this, and then step back into, you know, the character and do that. But that's just being professional, you know? I mean, that's just like, the engineer going, hey, guys, listen to this. I mean, listen, something's gotta change here. Like, this is not working.
It's a switch, man. It's on and off, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. And honestly, I'm not that fucking impressed with myself, man.
That's what makes you better. I mean, it's the same. She rides my ass all the time, bro. Like, you should be proud of like everything you've done. You should not, because if I look at myself and if I don't analyze myself, I can't grow. And so I just prefer not to look at my work to feel like I'm not at my best place, so I can be. And that's why I was just kind of seeing if it was a similar mindset in that way.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. It's a switch, and I think part of it is too, we have to rely on the people around us that we trust. You know, and when we're lucky enough, and it's funny because when at the end of Kills, speaking of sort of music analogies, the very end, I was in the very last shot on the very last day. It's called the Martini. So, then ladies and gentlemen, James, Jude, Courtney is wrapped. And, and everybody, all the cast and crew and everybody was there, and they applaud and they like say something. And I said, and I mentioned, I was like, David, you're the best director I've ever worked with. And I mean it. It's like, I've never met a director, never worked with a director who so completely checked his ego at the door. And he said, well, it's like a choir, isn't it? We want to get the most out of every voice. And if I've got one voice that isn't hitting, then I'm one voice short of a perfect choir.
That's crazy, because that's a crazy analogy, because how it is with music, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Because and so I had this conversation a little earlier today. And Zach and I had talked about this. Is there seems to be this interesting fascination between musicians. I mean, I play a little music. I got a guitar, piano, whatever. I haven't focused my life on chops. You know what I mean? So I don't call myself a musician just because I can hit a few chords. And carry a tune without going flat at least for 3 bars. You know what I mean? It's like there seems to be a fascination between actors and musicians.
Yeah.
There's a resonance there that happens.
I really think that every musician wants to be an actor. I mean,
Yeah, and I think every actor wants to be a musician.
Yeah, I've said that to her. Like, I've talked about producing my own films and writing and doing other things. I've always been fascinated with film. So.
Man, and you can ask Sarah, my girlfriend, because we since we've been hanging out together about a year and a half, we've been sitting side stage with Zach when he's performing, and I leave there going, fuck, man, why did I? High school I was in the band, but then I knew I was going to film, so I just really sort of dropped all that, and I just focused on doing what I was going to do, which was make films. And so many times when I've been, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And I have so many friends who are accomplished musicians, top of the freaking food chain musicians. And every time I'm with them and they perform, I'm like, dude, why did I? But somehow I was guided to do this.
Yeah, it's just your calling. It's just what it is. Like.
Yeah. Maybe in some parallel universe, we're all doing multiple things.
Yeah.
And maybe in some parallel universe, each one of you sons of bitches are killing somebody.
So how cool was it when you stomped the doctor's head? That was so cool. That was, yes.
Favorite
How
series
cool
that
was
was
that?
Okay.
What did they use, actually? I was just
Chris
curious.
Nelson made that head.
Stop.
He made that head. And that head, there were 2 of them. There were 2. We only got to do 2 takes. That head was so freaking, it looked so much like Sartain And I mean,
crazy.
you ask Sarah, like Sarah and I walked through we walked through the haunt, you know? And Sarah's jumping like this, you know? You can ask Chris Nelson, you can ask Sarah. Every time I'd walk into that trailer and he'd have those Sartain heads out, oh my God, man, I'm just like, cause his head.
You stopped it like a watermelon.
Oh,
It was
man,
just,
you
it
killed
was
it.
so cool.
Gracious,
What was
sir.
like?
You stopped it like the most ferocity, like, oh, you know?
Yeah, it felt straight. And you know, in the script, it actually says, he shits brains. That's Danny
So,
McBride.
what did they use for the inside? What was inside of it? Was it?
That was all stuff Chris made.
Oh.
Everything he made. I mean, that head looked exactly. I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was. It was just phenomenal. That was one of my favorite scenes.
That whole scene, just
Yeah.
the whole scene all the way to that.
Yeah.
That's why I went and got a beard and I came back and it was right there. I said, damn, I missed it.
Yeah, he just opened that door, just pretty
Yeah,
as you
it's
please,
my
grab
favorite
that
scene.
mask, just stop it. Yeah, it was great.
So, speaking of the haunt, the Michael Myers part in the haunt. How do you feel about that part?
Well, we had a chat.
You had a good job?
Did a great job. I'm gonna tell you that everybody in there did a great job, and man, the artwork in there is
Oh, it's
just
crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy.
It's so impressive when you see people people who have a passion for something and they do it well. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's you
Yeah.
know, I'm not a jumpy kind of guy. You know, like I get really calm. When shit starts flying. That's just my nature. I think it's because my dad was airborne and he was a stock car racer, and you know, he just when the shit started flying, my dad would just get really calm and quiet and soft. I mean, my brothers and I sort of inherited that one, except for the middle brother. He's kind of a screamer, but
Like her?
Yeah, like her. so you know, for me going through the haunt, I get to really look at what's going on, like who's really invested in their role, and how beautiful the costumes are, and how amazing the artwork is. So I'm telling you, man, y'all are lucky to have this haunt here. This is
Yeah,
great.
I mean, it's an incredible haunt.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones around Nashville, and we're lucky to have those. And people think I'm crazy because I look at all the artwork and stuff and how, but I'm like, this is a lot of work that goes into these. They don't just throw these up.
No.
This takes a lot of work, and you have to appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'll extrapolate that to movies. You know, I have a really critical eye in the things that I have something called the yeah right quotient in films. Like if I get to the third yeah right, like I watch it, go yeah right. You know, by the third one I'm done. I'm out. I've checked out. But I will rarely stop watching a movie unless there's some psychological, emotional position for me not to be watching that moment, or because I think anytime somebody gets a film done, it's a minor miracle. Because anybody who's ever worked on a film knows it's insanely difficult to make a film. It's so much hard work. And so I see the guys selling, over in the booth selling their indie films. Man, whether these guys made it for 5,000 or 50,000 or 100,000, I mean, that doesn't matter. What matters is these people busted their ass to make the best thing they possibly could.
Yeah.
To bring something out, some creative yearn they have to connect with an audience. So, you know, I am at a place in my life now where I really, really look for the positive in any creative expression, you know, unless someone's being a douchebag.
Well, you know, some parallels between music and film. As any artist, I mean, I think by the time I'm done with the album, sessions cost me at least $5,000. By the time, I mean, you've invested yourself, your time, and your money, and you just want your work to be heard by people.
Yeah.
Seen by people.
Yeah, man. I mean, I just love how invested the actors are in the haunt. I mean, they're there, man. They're there.
Yeah. My son does makeup for a lot of the haunted houses, and he did first and Indiana Jones too.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
Cool.
He gets really invested. He was an actor for Nashville Nightmare, for a few years too, so yeah, he gets really into it.
That's what life's about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got two quick questions.
Just an observation.
Oh.
The thing about musicians and actors, performers, and the audience, and that's the thing where their similarities are, because they're presenting themselves, whether by singing or acting or whatever, and the audience is taking it in. There's kind of a two-way thing, and you don't usually get to do that in film and see what the people, how they react, but when you go around to places and talk to people, you get part of that. And I think that's a similarity between musicians and actors, is that thing between the performer and the audience. You need both. Both need each other. It's a symbiotic relationship.
It's a very spiritual relationship.
And the other thing is, you mentioned that horror film fans, are the kindest and nicest people, and that's so cool to hear. But at the same time, just my observation is that the folks come here, and especially you, it's such a dichotomy of the character you perform and how you are in real life. And that's the thing that a lot of people as laymen don't understand, me too, that, wow, how can he be that nice? How can he be that daggone cool and so scary on the screen? And that's a wild thing that it's just amazing how.
It shows how talented
Yeah,
you are.
and eloquent and intelligent and all that good stuff. It's just amazing.
Like I told you, you're the fucking man. I told you that.
You had a question?
Yeah, just two quick questions. When you were in that one shot and you went up on the garage, how come you reached over with your left hand? Was it because you're left-handed, or you reached
No,
across your body?
I wouldn't be able to answer that. Like I told you, I intellectualize nothing.
And
So everything I do is driven from inside, from the energy that Castle created, 42 years ago. I mean, that's, 43 years ago. That's. I can't answer this question. I really can't.
And then my second question is, and I know you don't want to give any, spoilers for kills, but will we at least get another one shot over the shoulder, scene like we had in this movie? You can't even,
Ready? You ready? Yeah? All right. Y'all, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really, really,